Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and I've tested every single healer's new tier set for patch 11.2 or season 3. Now I've tested some tier sets more than others. It is PTR, there is a lot of issues, there is a lot of bugs, the numbers don't even mean anything at the moment because they will be tuned. And one of the most important things that's happening in the next major patch is the fact that tier sets are going to be based on your hero builds. So let's go and get started with our first healer. So let's go and get started with my boy Resto Shaman, and specifically in this case Totemic Resto Shaman, because remember, tier sets are based on hero builds. The 2-set bonus: after you consume all the whirling element modes, you cast downpour 200% effectiveness at your surging totem's location. So if you're not familiar with whirling elements, it's these things right here. So when you proc them, there's going to be a downpour shooting out your surging totem. So let's say right now I use my surging totem, you can see my whirling element modes. I'm gonna proc them by casting Chain Heal, and then I'm gonna cast Healing Wave. And you'll see Downpour shooting out of my Surging Totem. And that gives me a buff of the 4-set bonus, where your Chain Heal, Healing Wave, or Healing Surge casts again at 150% effectiveness. Now, if I press my Downpour manually, I get another stack of this. So you can't play around this. It is extremely buggy right now. I've run into multiple issues with this buff, sometimes being consumed. Again, this is PTR, but for example, in this case, I might cast a Healing Wave. I have this buff right now. I cast a Healing Wave on this person here, and the Healing Wave will be cast twice. And again, you have to remember that there's also increased effectiveness on the second cast. In short summary, I do think that the 4-set bonus could lead to some overhealing depending on how you end up using it, but in terms of the 4-set or the whole tier set for Totemic, I think it's very much in line with that Surging Totem emphasis. Please stack up, because I'm about to proc my Downpour. That's going to be extra effective, and then I'm going to get a buff that I can use in multiple different ways. Let me know how you feel about this. And now let's go to Farseer Resto Shaman, and I think the fact that they're splitting up tier sets based on hero builds, it's one of the things that Farseer Resto Shamans wanted for Season 2, because having a tier set based on Healing Rain wasn't all that fun. But right now, Farseer Resto Shamans, it's all about Ancestral Swiftness. Ancestral Swiftness summons an empowered ancestor for 19 seconds that deals 10% increased damage and healing, and Ancestral Swiftness reduces the cast time of your spells by 25%, the mana cost of your spells by 25%, and increases the recharge rate of Lava Burst and Riptide by 50% for 8 seconds. So it's all based around the usage of Ancestral Swiftness, which is only a 30-second cooldown. It's not really uncommon to get these tier sets based on your shorter cooldowns. You'll see a lot of other specs also doing that or getting that. And again, I wasn't 100% sold on this initially, but for example, look at this. One of the ways of having a guaranteed Ancestors procs based on some of the popular builds that people are using is using your Ancestral Swiftness, because that procs an Ancestor. Unleash Life also procs an Ancestor, so in Season 2, Season 1, you'll be using those abilities to set up for Burst Healing, Burst AoE. But now what happens, if you press Ancestral Swiftness, you get 2 Ancestors, and one of them is going to be empowered. And in this case, I might use my Unleash Life to proc a 3rd Ancestor. And imagine, again, you're setting up for burst healing, burst damage. You're also getting a buff in terms of the 4-set bonus, which also makes your spells, the cast time reduced, the mana cost reduced. And so I wasn't initially 100% sold on this, but I do feel that Ancestors or Farseer plays in such a way that it's really fun to get a bunch of Ancestors out and then do a bunch of burst healing, burst of damage. And I think this plays into it really nicely. So I'm warming up to this tier set more and more, and I think it does kind of fall in line in terms of what Farseer Resto Shaman is all about. So let's talk about Preservation Evoker, and specifically in this case Chrono Warden. So the 2-set bonus, Tip the Scales cooldown is reduced by 60 seconds. Tip the Scales has a cooldown of 2 minutes, but now it's 1 minute because of this tier set. If you watch the Farseer section, you'll notice that there is a team where Blizzard is building tier sets based on some of your cooldowns. And in terms of the 4-set bonus, Temporal Burst causes Chrono Flames to strike 1 additional target and repeat 10% additional damage or healing up to a certain amount. Again, numbers don't mean anything right now. Look at the intention, though numbers can always change. If you're not sure about what Temporal Burst is, it's this. So Tip the Scales overloads you with temporal energy, increasing your haste, movement speed, and cooldown recovery rate by 30%, decreasing over 30 seconds. So it's a long time. You can press your Tip the Scales, and then for the next 30 seconds, you're healing. There's going to be an additional person who's getting hit by your Chrono Flames, and it also works with damage as well. You'll notice this right now. So for example, I press my Tip the Scales. I'm gonna DPS a person right here. I'm gonna press my Chrono Flame. There's going to be another Chrono Flame going to another person. If I want to heal different people, I'm gonna press my Chrono Flame on this person, it's gonna go to another one as well. So I'm healing multiple people right now for a pretty long time, as long as Temporal Burst is lasting. This tier set focuses on Tip the Scales. It focuses on what you do after using Tip the Scales. Again, we used the Chrono Flame in order to do damage. It jumped to another person, something similar to Leaping Flames. I didn't see too much interaction with After Image, but I might need to test that out a little bit more. Let me know how you feel about this tier set for Chrono Warden. And now let's talk about Flame, Shaper, Preservation, Evoker. And honestly, numerically, this is probably kind of insane right now, but don't expect all of these tier sets go live the way that they are right now. Again, I talked about the fact that you shouldn't pay attention to numbers, but Engulf strokes your Inner Flames. Inner Flames, after using Engulf, you're gonna get this buff called Inner Flames, increasing your damage and healing over time by 40% and increasing your chance to gain Essence Burst by 50% for 12 seconds, stacks up to 2 times, multiple applications may overlap. I'll showcase you in terms of stacking it. And then the 4-set bonus, consuming Essence Burst during your Inner Flames fires an Essence Bomb at your target, healing nearby allies for a specific amount reduced beyond 5 targets. So first of all, we're gonna use Engulf on this person right now. We need to have, let's say, Dream Breath on them. We're gonna press Engulf. You're gonna get a buff called Inner Flame. Damage and healing over time increased by 40%. Chance to trigger Essence Burst increased by 50. We're gonna press Engulf again on them. You get 2 stacks of this, so damage and healing over time increased by 80%. Chance to trigger Essence Burst would have been 100% if I maintained it. So you can't stack this. And then the second part of this, in terms of the 4-set bonus, consuming Essence Burst during Inner Flame. So we're going to try and consume Essence Burst. Now, if you're not familiar with Essence Burst, it's this thing right here. Living Flames has a 20% chance and Reversion has a 50% chance to make your next Essence ability free. So we're going to press Dream Breath. We're going to press Engulf. We're going to cast some Living Flames. We're going to hoping for Essence Burst. It still didn't proc, so that's a little bit sad. We got it right here. I'm going to press Echo. And you can see this is the ability that shoots towards them, and then it also heals people around them. So you can see here, Essence Bomb by your target, healing nearby allies. And I think there's multiple ways to optimize this. I think numerically this is probably going to be looking really strong, but like I said, don't expect everything to go live the way that it is. Oh, and I almost forgot, this also works with stasis. For example, right now we're gonna activate stasis. We're gonna cast Dream Breath. We're gonna cast Double Engulf on this guy. You can see here we have Inner Flames double stacks right now. That's all good. We have our stasis. We're gonna let this buff drop off, and then we're gonna activate stasis, and that is also going to give me Inner Flame again. Inner Flame fell off. We're gonna activate stasis. And you can see here, I have that double Inner Flame. I'm not sure if this is going to stay like this, or if this feels like it's pushing stasis too much because of this. We'll have to see, but this is how it's working right now on PTR. And now let's talk about Restoration Druid, Keeper of the Grove specifically. So casting Incarnation Tree of Life or Convoke the Spirits calls upon the assistance of a Dryad for 5 seconds. The cast Tranquility at 50% effectiveness and instantly regrowth your lowest health ally at 200% effectiveness. We're going to test this out with Convoke the Spirits. You'll see right now, once I press Convoke the Spirits, there's going to be a Dryad here who's casting, you can see it here, casting Tranquility, and all the people right here have the Tranquility hot on them. Now, I did not test if this adds towards your mastery stacks. Usually with pets or these abilities, it tends to go in a similar way that they will benefit from the mastery stacks, but they might not add mastery stacks. But I have not tested it fully myself. And after that, in terms of your 4-set bonus, when your Dryad fades, your next 2 Swiftmen heals for an additional amount equal to 5% of your healing done while it was active, and splash 25% of their healing onto nearby allies reduced beyond 5 targets. And you can see here, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to press Convoke in around 10 seconds. You'll see the Dryad casting, you'll see the Tranquility, and I'm going to get a buff that's going to make my next 2 Swiftmen kind of do more healing and do splash healing. So I'm pressing my Convoke. Dryad is here. They're casting Tranquility. They also casted Regrowth on an ally that needed it. They fade. I get this buff called Dryad's Favor, where the healing of my next Swiftman is increased based on the healing that I did before, or a portion of that, and it splashes 25% of its healing done to nearby allies. It doesn't really have a special effect right now, or at least maybe the person needs to have some HP missing, because it just doesn't really have anything that looks cool in my opinion. And I did want to try out and test if it works with Reforestation, and it does. For example, I'm about to proc my Reforestation. I'm gonna press my Swiftman right here. I'm gonna go into Tree of Life. My Dryad is here, and it does give me the buff for the next 2 Swiftmans Again, we talked about this. Now, if I press Convoke, Dryad is going to spawn again, but the 4-set bonus is capped at 2. You can't go above 2 stacks of that, so that's something to keep in mind. I'm not sure if that's going to change in the future or not, but something that I just tested. And now let's talk about Wildstalker Restoration Druid. It's important to remember that Wildstalker received some buffs on the PTR for 11.2, so it's something to look forward to. The 2-set bonus. The rate at which symbiotic blooms grow is increased by 40%. Casting regrowth with clear casting causes symbiotic blooms to grow on up to 2 valid nearby allies. Again, more emphasis on regrowth, more emphasis on clear casting. I don't think that's all that different from how Resto Druids are playing right now. Symbiotic blooms have a 20% chance to trigger bursting growth every 2 seconds at 100% effectiveness. Each stack of symbiotic blooms on an ally increases bursting growth healing taken by 30%. Now, bursting growth, if you're not familiar with this, it's right here. So when symbiotic blooms expire or you cast rejuvenation on the target, flowers grow around the target, healing them and up to 3 nearby allies for a specific amount. Now, the 4-set bonus, symbiotic blooms have a 20% chance to trigger bursting growth every 2 seconds. So it changes that interaction a little bit. I also think it's a little bit awkward to showcase the 2-set bonus when casting regrowth with clear casting causes symbiotic blooms to grow on up to 2 valid nearby allies. It might be because this is a follower dungeon, it might be bugged, or I might have to try it out in a proper 5-man group. I'll try it out and report back in the future. I think there could be extra emphasis for Tranquil Mind because of the clear casting interaction. There is orangey elements in terms of the 4-set bonus, the way the symbiotic blooms have a 20% chance to trigger bursting growth. Again, a bit of orangey, a bit of passive healing that is in line with Wildstalker, and in terms of other changes, Implant has been changed to work with Wild Growth, so it might be nice to try it out in the future. I'll report back, but let me know how you feel about the Wildstalker tier set. So now let's talk about Mistweaver Monk and specifically Conduit of the Celestial. And honestly, the tier set is actually looking to be pretty insane, but Heart of the Jade Serpent additionally triggers for 8 seconds at 100% effectiveness after you cast Thunder Focus T. There's a lot of Thunder Focus T emphasis for both of the hero builds in terms of the tier sets. And for the people who don't know about Heart of the Jade Serpent, it's right here. So this is also triggered, or you can trigger it with Shalon's Gift. Calls upon Yulon to increase the cooldown recovery rate of Renewing Mist, Rising Sun Kick, Life Cocoon, and Thunder Focus T by 75% for up to 8 seconds based on the Clouds of Mist consumed. So you are getting cooldown recovery rate or increased cooldown recovery rate, and you can proc this multiple ways: through Shalon's Gift, which was the normal way of proccing it, or through Thunder Focus T. Now, besides the 2-set bonus, in terms of giving you an additional way of proccing Heart of the Jade Serpent, Heart of the Jade Serpent increases your haste by 15% while active and for 4 seconds afterwards. So for example, if I press my Thunder Focus T right now, I have this Heart of the Jade Serpent, I'm getting increased cooldown recovery rate, you're pressing buttons, you're using, like, you're gonna be doing a lot. You get haste as well from it. So I'm not gonna lie, there is a high chance that this build or hero build for Mistweaver Monk might become one of the highest APM builds out there in terms of actions per minute, because you're getting haste, you're getting cooldown, increased cooldown recovery rate, you have ways of proccing it through your Shalon's Gift as well. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, because this is not a tier set but a class change or a spec change in terms of vivacious vivification. They changed it. After casting Rising Sun Kick, your next Vivify becomes instant and its healing is increased by 20%. This is what I mean by we have to see what the rotation is going to look like when you're playing Conduit of the Celestial, because you're getting so much additional haste, you're getting that increased recovery rate or cooldown recovery rate. So in this case, I'm using my Rushing Wind Kick, I get instant cast Vivify. And let's say I use my Shalon's Gift, I'm going to proc the Heart of the Jade Serpent, and you can see here, it's also giving me haste. So I'm clicking my Rising Sun Kick / Rushing Wind Kick, I'm proccing my instant cast Vivifies. We'll have to see, but at the end of the day, very intensive. And in terms of Master of Harmony, the tier set is a little bit different. You'll notice here that gaining Vitality has an increased chance to cause your next target palm to unleash a Harmonic Surge, dealing a certain amount of nature damage split between your targets and other nearby enemies, and a certain amount healing up to 5 injured allies. And the 4-set bonus, casting Thunder Focus T, guarantees that your next 2 casts of Target Palm will trigger Harmonic Surge, and Harmonic Surge is the 2-set bonus. Now, with Master of Harmony, getting vitality is, again, you store vitality from your damage and your healing. So in terms of the way that it looks like, I'm going to proc my Thunder Focus Tea. That means my next 2 Tiger Palms, you can see here, next 2 Tiger Palms will cause Harmonic Surge. And this is what Harmonic Surge looks like. It deals damage and it also heals people. You can see these little bolts going to heal the enemies, and I'm also dealing damage at the same time. And your 2-set bonus gives you a chance of also proccing this somewhat randomly. So I'm not sure how to feel about this one in terms of the fun factor. I think it is kind of in line in terms of how Master of Harmony plays, but again, maybe not the most exciting out of all of them. Let me know how you feel. Now let's go to Holy Paladin in terms of Herald of the Sun, and this is kind of hard to showcase, but I'm gonna try my best. So the 2-set bonus Dawn Light's healing and damage is increased by 30%, and you gain Solar Wrath. So Solar Wrath, after Avenging Wrath fades, causing Sun Avatar's effect to linger for an additional 10 seconds. So if you're not familiar with Sun Avatar, this is basically the thing right here where during Avenging Wrath you become linked to your Dawn Lights within 30 yards and all those things. So you can keep this effect. Now, the 4-set bonus is that Solar Wrath increases the effectiveness of your Holy Power. Holy Power spends by 15% and grants you 2 Dawn Lights. So just to showcase exactly how it works, this is obviously one of those tier set that gives you power after your cooldowns end. So for example, right here, I'm gonna press my wings. There's going to be Dawn Lights applied because of the Sun Avatar's effect. So I'm pressing my wings and it's going to select applicable targets. Again, not all of these targets are healable, so it's not always going to be a perfect example. So this person has it. I'm gonna wait for wings to end in around 12 seconds, and this is going to give me, after wings end, it's going to give me 2 Dawn Lights. I'm gonna try and get a stack of my Holy Power just to showcase what it looks like. So it ends, I have 2 Dawn Lights, I press my Holy Power spenders, and you can see I'm linked to the players because this person has Dawn Light. So there'll probably be multiple different ways of optimizing your Dawn Lights and the linking effect from this tier set. I think it's pretty interesting. And now let's talk about Lightsmith Holy Paladin tier set, and there is a lot of randomness to it. There is a bit of a support element to it, with, like, you know, your armaments and things like that. But the 2-set bonus, Hammer and Anvil's healing is increased by 15%, and it can also be activated by Crusader Strike at 100% effectiveness. Now, this could actually use additional description. So first of all, if you're not familiar with Hammer and Anvil, Judgment critical strikes causes a shockwave around the target, dealing a certain amount of healing at the target's location. Now, this can also be procced by Crusader Strike, but only Crusader Strike critical strikes. So the only way to proc Hammer and Anvil is going to be getting a crit from Judgment or Crusader Strike, which for me it wasn't really obvious based on the wording here, but maybe that's a my issue. And in terms of the 4-set bonus, Hammer and Anvil also grants a stack of Masterwork, causing your next Holy Armament to cast one lesser version of itself onto a nearby ally for each stack. I've been testing this a little bit, so I'm gonna try and get stacks. I'm gonna press Crusader Strike. Again, it didn't crit, I didn't get a stack. I pressed Judgment, sorry. I pressed Crusader Strike, it crit. I got a stack of Masterwork. I pressed Judgment, it didn't crit. I pressed Crusader Strike, it did crit. I get a second stack of it. I'm gonna press Judgment after this. It did crit. I get 3 stacks. You can see the weak ore right here on the very top. I pressed Crusader Strike, it didn't crit. I didn't get a stack. Judgment didn't get a stack. Let's see if we get luck with Crusader Strike. We didn't. We're gonna try and get like 4 stacks. I think I haven't really checked if there is a cap on how many, but let's say right now I have 4 stacks of Masterworks. So that means again, we're gonna read it here. Your next Holy Armament will also cast 5 lesser armaments. So if I cast my Holy Armament right now, just look at the screen here. All of the people here have armaments on them at the moment, so you can see it. So it is kind of fun to spread these support buffs, these shields onto people. Again, it's based on the whole on the armament that you're casting. My next one is going to be Sacred Weapon, so you could do the same thing. But you can see what I mean about the fact that there is RNG elements to it. You get these stacks, and then you get to provide more support buffs to your party. I'm not sure if there is a cap on how many stacks you can do. It is based on your critical strikes of Judgment and Crusader Strike, so let me know how you feel. So now let's go to Discipline Priest. In this case, we're going to be looking at Oracle tier set. So the 2 set bonus is first bolt of each penance cast damage or heals for 200% more. Now keep in mind, Oracle Discipline Priest and Holy Priest Oracle tier sets are basically identical except for the 2 set bonus here. In terms of Discipline, it works with Penance. In terms of Holy Priest, it's going to work with Prayer of Mending. So we'll cover that a little bit, but in terms of the 4 set bonus, casting Premonition of Piety or Premonition of Solace grants 2 stacks of Premonition of Insight at 100% effectiveness. Consuming a stack of Premonition of Insight increases your haste by 1% for 10 seconds. Multiple applications may overlap. I actually kind of really like that because by far my favorite Premonition is going to be Premonition of Insight, which provides CDR. Now, that basically means when you use a Premonition of Piety, which is basically your healing over healing one, you're also going to get 2 stacks of Premonition of Insight, which means you get 2 stacks or 2 spells are going to reduce in CDR, and I think that's pretty cool. The same way that when you use a Premonition of Solace, which is basically your shield, you're also getting 2 stacks of Premonition of Insight. And when you consume Premonition of Insight, you're getting stacks of haste both. The reason why I like the cooldown or CD or Premonition, because you can use it in so many different ways depending on the content you're doing, whether it's raid, mythic plus, you might use it back-to-back penances, you might use penance into shield, or you might use it for a dispel. But just to showcase it, for example, right now my next Premonition is going to be the overheal one, and I'm going to be getting my next 2 spells are also going to provide CDR. So that is the tier set right now. I can use it on something like penances or shields or whatever. It really just depends on the content you're doing. My other Premonition is going to be the shield one. The shield one is also going to give me 2 stacks of Premonition of Insight. You have to remember, this is the buff that I get when I consume Insight. So I'm going to use it here. I get 2 CDR on the spells. I also get the shield. I can use it on whatever I want. When I'm consuming Premonition of Insight, I'm also getting this stacking buff called Visionary Velocity. Haste increased by a certain percentage. Multiple applications may overlap. So that's something to remember. So for example, my next Premonition is going to be Premonition of Clairvoyance, which means that I'm getting all of them. I am not going to get additional 2 stacks of Premonition of Insight. It's going to be exactly the same as you usually would normally use it. So you can see here, I get all the 3 buffs. But when I'm consuming my CDR ability here, I'm getting the stacking haste buff. So that's the main difference here. So it might be a little bit convoluted, but once you actually use it once or twice, you know exactly how this tier set works. And now let's go to Voidweaver Discipline Priest, and the tier set is obviously going to be very different. It's Entropic Rift themed. So the 2 set bonus Void Blast and Penance damage is increased by 40%, and Void Blast cast time is reduced by 20. Void Blast now also causes Entropic Rift to grow. So that's kind of interesting. Collapsing Void increases Entropic Rift's damage by an additional 10%. And the damage of your next Mind Blast is increased by up to 200 based on the size of the Entropic Rift when you collapse. So you get rewarded for having a good Entropic Rift window. Again, if you look at Collapsing Void, each time Penance damages or heals, Entropic Rift is empowered, increasing its damage and size by 10. So this is how Collapsing Void used to work, and the tier set adds on top of that. So for example, I'm going to proc Entropic Rift by casting Mind Blast. And look at this, I can cast my Void Blast and the Entropic Rift is actually growing. So that's some of the new interaction. And after the Entropic Rift is going to collapse, you'll get a buff that's going to increase the damage of your next Mind Blast by 200%. And again, if my Entropic Rift was smaller, if I didn't get to cast that many abilities, this could possibly be a smaller bonus. So you get rewarded for good play. Now, I'm not sure how much of a gameplay interaction change this is going to cause. I haven't played Voidweaver Discipline Priest in a very long time. Everyone's playing Oracle because it's just so meta right now. Again, this is a tier set that is based on the theme of what Voidweaver is, and it focuses on the Entropic Rift and things like that. I really want to know your opinion, especially Discipline Priest Voidweaver mains. What do you think about this tier set, and do you think it's rewarding, or do you like it? And now let's talk about Holy Priest Oracle, and I don't want to talk too much about this because it's basically almost identical to the Discipline Priest Oracle section, except for the 2 set bonus where casting Prayer of Mending heals your target for 1.7 million here, and the 4 set bonus is basically the same in terms of the Oracle, in terms of playing around the Premonitions, or basically playing around Premonition of Insights. You can see here, if I press my CDR Premonition, I'm not gonna get 2 extra CDR abilities. Instead, I can use them for something like Prayer of Mending because the 2 set bonus is also empowered in this. But if I use my Overheal premonition. I'm also getting 2 stacks of premonition of insight, which is also gives you a CDR to your spells, just like the Discipline Priest version of it. Nothing too fancy. Again, I said I'm a fan of premonition of insight. I'm gonna say the same thing for the Holy Priest one. If you do enjoy premonitions, let me know which one's your favorite. Now, in terms of Holy Priest Archon, it's very, very different, but it's still revolving around the things that make Archon great, which is Halo. It's all about the Halo. So the 2-set bonus, Halo reduces the cooldown of your Holy Word Serenity and Holy Word Sanctified by 5 seconds, and Resonant Energy additionally increases the healing of your Holy Words by 5%. So if you don't know Resonant Energy, it's right here. Allies healed by your Halo receive 2% increased healing from you for 8 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Now it also has an additional effect with your Holy Words. And just to showcase it, so first of all, Halo, it's actually kind of important to showcase. Halo reduces the cooldown of your Holy Word Serenity and Holy Word Sanctified by 5 seconds. You need to have them on cooldown to make use of this. So I'm going to use my Sanctify and Serenity. I have them on cooldown. I'm using Halo. The cooldown reduction is going to, again, you see it applied. And then you see my Halo going back and forth, and this person has this buff right now where they received increased healing. Additionally, Holy Word healing taken from Mad Healer is increased by a certain amount. So that's what I mean by the new section being added to Resonant Energy. Now, in terms of your 4-set bonus, while Power Surge is active, and again, Power Surge, for the people who don't know, is just basically the main thing of Archon in terms of, you know, your Halo, and after you proc it, after you use your Halo, basically, while Power Surge is active, every 2 casts of Holy Word Serenity or Holy Word Sanctify adds another Halo to the effect at 100% effectiveness. So if you enjoy Archon in terms of the Halo effects going back and forth and stuff like that, this is going to prolong that effect. You mainly just have to, for example, if I'm casting my Halo, I'm going to be casting my Holy Word spells, and this is just going to add additional rings to it. Again, it's up to 2 additional times. You can use your Apotheosis to give you additional cooldown reduction as well. So you can see the rings going back and forth, back and forth. The effect is increased. You also people are getting this buff here where we're talking about from the 2-set bonus. Additionally, Holy Word healing taken from Mad Healer is increased by a certain amount. And of course, because you're encouraged to use your Holy Word spells during your Halo windows, there is already a gameplay loop that allows you to use it more. You still have abilities or talents like creating a Halo grants a Surge of Light. Consuming Surge of Light reduces the cooldown of Holy Word Sanctify. Using more Holy Word spells adds additional rings. There is a limit on that. The people that get hit by Halo get a buff on them that also increases healing from your Holy Word spells. So you can see the gameplay loop is already there. I don't feel like it's all that different from what Archon is all about. It's all about Halo, it's all about those rings, it's all about the visual of it, and I think it's pretty interesting. Numerically, I'm not really talking about anything in terms of numerical values because anything can change at any given point, but I guess it's in line with what Archon Holy Priest is like. This kind of summarizes the whole video. I spent a decent amount of time trying out all the healers. There's so many things that I missed out on. There's so many things that are bugged out. There's so many things that are not working properly or should be changed, improved, buffed, nerfed, and all those things. This is the first iteration of PTR. Don't look at the numbers. Don't look at how strong it is, because those things will absolutely change. The intention of a tier set is the most important part here, because unless the tier set is going to receive huge negative feedback from players, Blizzard will stick with that tier set and they'll make it, how do I say, viable. And this time around, Blizzard has so many more tier sets to do because they're based on your hero builds. And I think it's such a polar opposite of what they tried to do in Season 2. In Season 2, they tried to take the absolute minimal way, where your 2-set bonus is the same across the board for most healers, and then you have a 4-set bonus. And in Season 3, they're actually saying, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna make a tier set for everyone. And I think that is absolutely fantastic if they get the balance right. If they get the balance right for each of the hero builds, I think they can make hero builds play better, more fun, and feel like that hero build. But it's all based on the tuning, all based on how they're going to run the numbers and all those things. Let me know how you feel about this video. I missed out or probably made a lot of mistakes, so keep that in mind. Check class discords for additional testing. I'm only one person at the end of the day, and there is a lot of healers to test. Let me know which healer I should focus on specifically next. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in my next video.